In the harsh Montana territory of 1870, where law bent to the will of desperate men, widower Thomas Blackwood raised his daughter alone on a struggling cattle ranch. When he discovers a pregnant black woman being sold at auction by her vengeful husband, Thomas risks everything to purchase her freedom, unaware that her medical knowledge will save his daughter's life and her courage will heal his grief-hardened heart. Thomas Blackwood stood ready to defend his newfound family against a world that denied their right to exist. The first gunshot shattered the dawn silence. Thomas Blackwood felt the bullet tear through his shoulder before he heard the report. He stumbled backward, rifle still clutched in his right hand, blood blooming across his shirt. "That's my property you're harboring, rancher," the well-dressed Southerner called from 50 yards away. "My wife and my child." Thomas steadied himself, pain searing through his body. "No man owns another on my land." Behind him, Mercy pressed herself against the cabin wall, hands protectively covering her swollen belly. Her eyes showed no fear, only calculation. The Southerner nodded to his men. They spread out, weapons raised. Thomas raised his rifle one-handed. The world tilted, his knees buckled. Blood pooled beneath him as Mercy dragged him toward the cabin door. Her strength surprised him, even now. The armed men approached until a rifle shot from the cabin window sent them scrambling for cover. "Pa! Pa!" Emma's voice called from inside. As consciousness slipped away, Thomas saw Mercy grab his fallen rifle. She positioned herself between him and the men, willing to die protecting a man she barely knew. 4 months earlier, Thomas had ridden into town with his daughter Emma for monthly supplies. The 10-year-old's persistent cough worried him. It echoed her mother's before tuberculosis took her 3 years prior. "Need any news with those beans, Blackwood?" the storekeeper asked, wrapping parcels in brown paper. Thomas shook his head. "Town's got visitors. Slave auction happening by the old mill. Illegal this far north, but nobody's stopping it." Thomas dismissed it as not his business. His cattle needed tending. Winter approached. Emma tugged his sleeve. Ma would have helped. Her words struck him like a physical blow. The auction crowd gathered around a makeshift platform. Men with hard eyes and whiskey breath jostled for position. Thomas stood at the back, Emma's small hand in his. A woman stood on the platform, pregnant, back straight despite the ropes around her wrists. Her face revealed nothing, but her eyes burned with quiet dignity. "Quality house girl," the auctioneer announced. "Reads better than most of you. Cooks, sews, comes with the child she's carrying." A well-dressed man in a gray suit stepped forward. Clayton Williams. His plantation accent carried across the crowd. "That's my wife who stole herself away. Those bidding are buying stolen property." The bidding turned ugly. Men called out lewd suggestions. Thomas felt Emma's hand tighten in his. 200, he called out suddenly. The crowd turned. 400, Thomas continued when another man bid against him. Williams watched him with cold amusement. 800. Thomas named his entire season's cattle earnings. No one countered. Williams approached after the auction concluded. "You'll regret involving yourself in a man's personal affairs." Thomas ignored him, helping the woman into his wagon beside Emma. The ride home stretched 20 miles through rugged country. Silence hung between them. "What's your name?" Emma finally asked the woman. "Mercy," she answered, voice unexpectedly cultured. "You're going to have a baby," Emma observed. Mercy's hand rested on her belly. "Yes." Thomas cleared his throat. "You're free to leave once you're strong enough. But welcome to stay until after the baby comes." That night, Thomas found Mercy reading by candlelight in the small storage room he'd given her. "You can read," he said. She closed the book carefully. "Clayton's first wife taught me, before she died." "Get some rest," he said, uncomfortable with what this revelation meant. 3 weeks later, Emma's cough worsened during a fierce storm. Her small body burned with fever. Thomas pressed cold cloths to her forehead, panic rising. The nearest doctor lived 50 miles away. A knock at the bedroom door. Mercy stood holding a small leather pouch. "Let me help her," she said. Thomas hesitated. Emma moaned in her sleep. "Please," Mercy said. Thomas stepped aside. Mercy worked through the night. She crushed dried herbs, brewed teas, applied poultices to Emma's chest. From beneath her dress lining, she produced carefully folded pages, medical journal extracts, and handwritten recipes. "My grandmother was a healer," she explained. "She taught me before they sold her away." By dawn, Emma's fever broke. She breathed easier, sleeping peacefully. Thomas found Mercy on the porch, exhausted. The storm had passed. Morning light gilded the distant mountains. "You saved her life," he said. "She reminds me of someone I knew, someone kind." Thomas cleared his throat. "There's a proper room inside, next to Emma's. It's yours if you want it." "Why?" "You need somewhere safe until the baby comes. After that, I'll get your freedom papers drawn up proper." What he didn't say: Emma needed her. Perhaps he did too. In town, Clayton Williams laid money on a saloon table before two trackers. Find them. Spring transformed the ranch. Mercy planted a garden with medicinal herbs. Emma followed her everywhere, asking endless questions about plants and healing. Thomas taught Mercy to shoot. "Hold it steady against your shoulder," he instructed, positioning the rifle in her hands. "Breathe out when you pull the trigger." She hit the target on her third try. Emma's reading improved under Mercy's tutelage. Thomas often found them huddled over books in the evening, Mercy patiently sounding out difficult words. The neighboring ranchers grew suspicious during a cattle drive meetup. "Heard you took in a colored woman," Harlan Jenkins said, eyes narrowed over his coffee cup. "She saved my daughter when no doctor would come," Thomas replied. "Folks are talking." Thomas rode home troubled. He found Mercy hanging laundry. "I heard," she said before he could speak. "I should leave." "This is your home now, too," he answered. That night at dinner, Emma accidentally called Mercy Ma. The word hung in the air. No one corrected her. When the thunderstorm broke over the ranch weeks later, Mercy's labor began. Thomas sent Emma to heat water and gather clean linens. His hands shook with nerves. Mercy's calm voice guided him through the delivery. Her face contorted with pain, but she never screamed. "The head is coming," she gasped. "Support it gently." Thomas obeyed, awestruck as new life emerged in his rough hands. The baby girl's cry filled the cabin. Thomas placed her on Mercy's chest. "Hope," Mercy whispered, naming her daughter. Then her eyes grew distant. "There's something you should know." Through pain-soaked words, Mercy revealed her truth. Clayton's first wife hadn't died of illness. Clayton had murdered her after discovering she taught Mercy to read. "I witnessed it," Mercy said. "When I knew I carried his child, I fled. He would have killed me too once the baby was born." Thomas absorbed this revelation in silence. He understood now. This wasn't just about freedom. It was about survival. The sheriff arrived 2 weeks later. He removed his hat at the door. "Clayton Williams filed papers. Claims you kidnapped his property." Thomas stiffened. "She's not property." "I know that. But men are coming with legal authority." As the sheriff mounted to leave, he pressed a folded paper into Thomas's hand. "Underground Railroad route to Canada. My brother-in-law runs a station in Dakota Territory." That night, Thomas studied the map by lamplight. Escape meant abandoning the ranch, his wife's grave, everything he'd built. Staying meant losing Mercy and hope to a man who would destroy them. "We leave at first light," he told Mercy. Spring brought new life to the ranch. Tender green shoots pushed through soil that had been frozen for months. Mercy tended her expanding garden of medicinal herbs, her fingers working the earth with reverence. Her body had recovered its strength after Hope's birth. The baby grew plump and strong, eyes alert and watching. Thomas observed them from the corral where he mended fences. He caught himself watching Mercy too often, the way sunlight caught her profile, the careful precision of her movements. the gentleness she showed Emma. He returned to his work, hammering with unnecessary force. Emma flourished under Mercy's attention. Her cough had disappeared entirely. She followed Mercy everywhere, collecting herbs in a small basket, learning their names and properties. She read better now, sounding out difficult words under Mercy's patient guidance. At dinner, Thomas noticed Emma watching Mercy's every movement, mimicking how she held her fork, how she dabbed her mouth with a napkin. Small gestures of admiration. Thomas taught Mercy to shoot one clear afternoon. Her hands were steady on the rifle but unfamiliar with its weight. "Breathe out when you pull the trigger," he instructed, standing closer than necessary. "Let your body absorb the kickback." Her concentration was absolute. The rifle cracked, the target splintered. Thomas found himself studying her profile. Something stirred in him, forgotten and dangerous. That night he stood at his wife's grave beneath the old oak. The guilt came in waves, betrayal wrapped in longing. He traced the carved letters of her name, asked forgiveness for feelings he couldn't name. Spring moved toward summer. Calves grew strong in the pastures. Mercy's garden flourished under her careful tending. Hope began to crawl, determined and stubborn. Emma read entire books now, proud of each completed page. Thomas prepared for the summer cattle drive. 5 neighboring ranchers would join forces to drive their combined herds to the railroad junction 60 miles north. Market prices were good this year. They needed the money. The campfire threw shadows across weathered faces the first night of the drive. Coffee passed in tin cups. Men spoke of rain prospects and wolf sightings. Then Harlan Jenkins cleared his throat. "Heard you took in a colored woman, Blackwood." Silence fell. Thomas sipped his coffee. "She has medical knowledge. Saved my Emma when no doctor would come." More silence. Men studied the fire. "Folks are talking," Jenkins continued. "Some say she's more than just your daughter's nurse." Thomas set his cup down carefully. "Those folks should mind their business." Later, as other men slept, Jenkins approached Thomas on watch. "Meant no disrespect," Jenkins said quietly. "But others might cause trouble." Railroad man was asking questions in town. Southern accent. Well-dressed. Thomas rode home troubled. Clayton was getting closer. Mercy stood in the dooryard hanging laundry when he returned. The wind caught a white sheet, billowing it like a sail. For a moment she wrestled with it, then mastered it with efficient movements. "I heard at the general store," she said before he could speak. "The railroad man asking questions, describing me." Thomas dismounted. "Jenkins told me I should leave, take Hope north." Her hands never stopped working, pinning the sheet to the line. "This is your home now, too," he answered. That evening, as Emma helped Mercy prepare dinner, she accidentally called her Ma. The word fell into silence. No one moved, no one corrected her. Thomas studied his plate. Mercy's eyes shimmered briefly before she turned back to the stove. Some words, once spoken, couldn't be unsaid. They lived in the air between people, changing everything with their presence. Summer stretched golden across the land. Thomas added a room to the cabin for Hope, who grew stronger daily. Mercy expanded her garden, drying herbs for winter remedies. Emma learned to help with the cattle, small but fearless on her pony. The ranch prospered under their combined efforts. A tentative peace settled over their improvised family. The first thunderstorm of late summer brought it all crashing down. Lightning split the sky as Mercy clutched her side, face contorted. Her water had broken hours earlier. The baby was coming weeks early. Thomas sent Emma to heat water and gather clean linens, her face pale with worry. "Tell me what to do," Thomas said, kneeling beside Mercy's bed. Through waves of pain, Mercy guided him. Her knowledge never faltered despite her suffering. Thomas followed her instructions with trembling hands, in awe of her strength. "The head is coming," she gasped. "Support it gently." Thomas obeyed, watching in wonder as new life emerged in his rough hands. The tiny girl arrived with a powerful cry. He placed her on Mercy's chest, something breaking open inside him. "Hope," Mercy whispered, naming her daughter. Later, As the storm still raged outside, Mercy's eyes grew distant. Pain and exhaustion stripped away her careful reserve. "There's something you should know about Clayton," she said. Thomas listened as truth poured out like blood from a wound. Clayton's first wife hadn't died of illness as everyone believed. Clayton had murdered her after discovering she taught Mercy to read. Mercy had witnessed it, hidden behind a parlor curtain. When I learned I carried his child, I knew he would kill me too once the baby was born. No witnesses to his cruelty. Thomas absorbed this revelation in silence. He understood now with terrible clarity. This wasn't just about freedom. It was about survival. 2 weeks passed. Hope thrived despite her early arrival. Mercy recovered quickly, resuming her duties with the baby secured to her chest in a sling. The sheriff arrived on a hot afternoon, dust coating his horse and clothes. He removed his hat at the door, twisting the brim in his hands. "Clayton Williams filed papers, claims you kidnapped his property." Thomas stiffened. "She's not property." "I know that, but men are coming with legal authority to seize her and the child. 3 days, maybe 4 before they arrive." As the sheriff mounted to leave, he pressed a folded paper into Thomas's hand. "Underground Railroad route to Canada. My brother-in-law runs a station in Dakota Territory. God be with you." That night, Thomas studied the map by lamplight. The route would take them north through hostile territory. Escape meant abandoning the ranch, his wife's grave, everything he'd built. Staying meant losing Mercy and hope to a man who would destroy them. Morning found him standing at his wife's grave. The sky lightened with dawn. "I hope you understand," he whispered. "I think you would." He packed supplies while Mercy prepared food for the journey. Emma was solemn but unquestioning. She packed her mother's Bible and a small wooden horse Thomas had carved for her birthday. "Will we ever come back?" she asked, stopping at the threshold. Thomas couldn't lie to her. "I don't know." They were loading the wagon when the first snowflakes fell. Early for this time of year. Bad sign. Thomas looked at the darkening sky. "We need to hurry." By noon, snow fell heavily. The wind picked up, driving icy particles into their faces. Emma began to cough. 5 miles from the ranch, the storm became a blizzard. The horses struggled against the wind. Emma's cough worsened, her small body shaking with each spasm. Thomas made the decision. We turned back. The ranch appeared through swirling white, a haven they'd tried to abandon. Thomas carried Emma inside while Mercy followed with hope bundled against her chest. By nightfall, Emma burned with fever, the same tubercular cough that had taken her mother. Mercy worked through the night with her medicines, fear visible in every line of her body. The blizzard trapped them for 3 days. They missed their rendezvous with the Underground Railroad conductors. Emma's fever finally broke, but she remained weak. When the storm cleared, Thomas checked the property. Fresh horse tracks circled the house, leading toward the barn. The barn doors stood open. Inside, the smell of lamp oil hung heavy. Charred beams showed where a fire had been started, but failed to catch fully in the damp wood. Thomas ran back to the house. "They've found us." Thomas barred the doors and windows. Night fell quickly, darkness absolute in the snowbound landscape. He loaded both rifles and his revolver, placing them strategically around the cabin. In the dim firelight, his face looked carved from stone. Mercy moved silently through the small space, gathering supplies. Food, water, medicines. Emma watched from her bed, eyes wide and knowing. Too young to bear such knowledge. "The root cellar," Thomas said, voice low. "If they come, take Emma and Hope there." Mercy nodded, testing the trapdoor hidden beneath the kitchen rug. The space below was small, but would hide them if necessary. Thomas had covered it with supplies, creating a false wall at the back. They waited. Night stretched into dawn. Snow glittered under a cold sun. No movement disturbed the pristine white landscape. The stillness felt predatory, a hunter's patience. Emma's cough persisted, weaker now but present. Mercy administered her medicines regularly. The girl's fever had broken, but her body remained fragile. No condition for travel. Thomas checked the property every few hours. The failed attempt to burn the barn troubled him. Clayton's men had found them, but waited. Their patience suggested a plan. The sun began its descent. Another night approached. Thomas returned from checking the perimeter, snow crusting his coat and boots. "Tracks to the east," he reported. 5 horses at least. Mercy fed Hope by the fire, her face calm. "They'll come at dawn." Thomas nodded, cleaning his rifle methodically. Time for talk. Night wrapped the cabin in darkness. Thomas kept watch by the window. Mercy put Emma to bed, tucking the quilt around her small frame. The girl caught her hand. "Are you scared?" Emma whispered. "Yes," Mercy answered honestly. "But fear doesn't mean we stop fighting." Emma nodded, accepting this truth with a child's simple understanding. "Will you sing to me?" Mercy sang quietly, an old song about rivers and freedom. Emma drifted to sleep, her hand still clutching Mercy's. Thomas watched from the doorway. Something tightened in his chest. This improvised family, created from necessity and chance, had become more precious than he could articulate. Later in the kitchen, Mercy prepared food for the next day. Her movements were precise, rhythmic. Thomas sat cleaning his revolver, the familiar task focusing his mind. "If they take us," Mercy said without looking up from her work, "don't try to follow." Thomas set the revolver down. "That won't happen." "Emma needs her father. Hope needs her mother." Mercy's hand stilled. "What if freedom isn't a place but the people who fight for you?" The question hung between them, unanswerable. "If anything happens to me," Thomas said carefully, "take Emma and go north. She'll be safer with you than alone." Mercy nodded, accepting this impossible task. Their eyes met across the table, a current of understanding passing between them. Words felt inadequate against the weight of what they faced. The room grew cold as the fire died. Neither moved to rebuild it. Darkness preserved the fragile moment between them. "I should have left you in peace," Mercy finally said. "Brought this danger to your door." Thomas shook his head. "You gave us life when Emma was sick. Before that, we were just surviving." Mercy's eyes glistened in the dim light. Thomas reached across the table. His rough hand covered hers, calloused skin against smooth. "Whatever comes," he said, "we face it together." Morning arrived with cold clarity. Thomas woke from a brief sleep, instantly alert. The world outside remained quiet, blanketed in pristine snow. Too quiet. No birds called. No wind stirred the branches. They were coming. Thomas woke Mercy with a touch on her shoulder. She rose without question, moving to prepare Emma and Hope, the practiced routine of people who had rehearsed this moment in their minds. Thomas positioned himself at the front window, rifle ready, eyes scanning the tree line. The first golden rays of dawn broke over the horizon, casting long shadows across the snow. Movement at the edge of the clearing. One rider emerged from the trees, then another. 5 men total, spaced apart. In the center, Clayton Williams, distinctive in his gray coat and black hat. Thomas opened the door, stepping onto the porch. Cold air bit through his clothes. His rifle remained lowered but ready. Clayton stopped 30 yards from the house. His men fanned out on either side, weapons visible. "Blackwood," Clayton called, his southern accent carrying clearly in the still air. "I've come to collect what's mine." Thomas stood immobile. "Nothing here belongs to you." Clayton smiled, the expression not reaching his eyes. "The law disagrees. I have papers declaring that woman and child my property." "Papers don't make a person property." Clayton gestured to his men. "I have legal authority to reclaim what you stole. Step aside, and this ends peacefully." Inside, Thomas knew Mercy was moving Emma and Hope to the root cellar. He needed time. Thomas called, "The woman came to me beaten and pregnant, seeking refuge from a man who murdered his own wife." Clayton's face hardened. Lies told by a deceitful slave. truth told by a woman protecting her child. The men shifted restlessly in their saddles. Morning light strengthened, glinting off rifle barrels and frozen breath. Clayton's patience visibly thinned. Final chance, Blackwood. Give me the woman and child. Keep your daughter and ranch. Thomas felt a strange calm settle over him. No man owns another on my land. The first shot came from Clayton's right. Thomas felt the bullet before he heard the sound. Hot pain tore through his shoulder. The impact knocked him backward against the cabin wall. Blood bloomed across his shirt, bright against the faded fabric. His rifle remained clutched in his right hand, unfired. "That's my property you're harboring, rancher," Clayton called, advancing his horse. "My wife and my child." Thomas steadied himself against the burning pain. "No man owns another on my land." Clayton's men spread out, weapons raised. Thomas raised his rifle one-handed. The world tilted beneath him. His knees buckled. The cabin door opened behind him. Mercy pulled him inside, strength surprising in her slender frame. Blood pooled beneath him as she dragged him toward cover. Clayton's men approached until a rifle shot from the cabin window sent them scrambling for cover. "Pa! Pa!" Emma's voice called from inside. Thomas struggled to focus. Mercy had propped him against the wall, quickly examining his wound. Her face showed no fear, only determination. "Not fatal," she said, pressing a cloth to his shoulder. "But you'll bleed out without help." Thomas pushed himself up, vision blurring. "Get back to the cellar." Mercy ignored him, tearing strips from her petticoat for bandages. Outside, Clayton's men regrouped behind the woodpile and water trough. "Give me the rifle," Mercy said, hands steady despite the danger. Thomas hesitated. She met his gaze, unwavering. "I won't let them take hope." He handed her the weapon. She checked the chamber with practiced ease, then moved to the window. The transformation struck him, from healer to warrior in an instant. A shot splintered the window frame. Mercy ducked, then rose to return fire. Her aim was true. A cry from outside confirmed it. "They're coming around back," she warned. Thomas forced himself to his feet, using the wall for support. Pain radiated from his shoulder, hot and insistent. He retrieved his revolver from the table. The sound of breaking glass from the bedroom. Emma screamed. Thomas staggered toward the sound. Revolver raised. The world narrowed to a single point, protecting his daughter. The back door splintered inward. Two of Clayton's men burst through, weapons ready. Thomas fired twice. The first man fell. The second returned fire, missing Thomas but hitting the wall behind him. Mercy appeared from the kitchen, rifle aimed. The intruder turned toward her. Thomas tackled him despite his wounded shoulder. They crashed to the floor, struggling for control. Pain exploded through Thomas's body. Darkness edged his vision. He felt his strength failing. The man beneath him reached for a fallen pistol. A shot rang out. The man went limp. Mercy stood in the doorway, rifle still raised. Smoke curled from the barrel. Her eyes met Thomas's, a silent acknowledgement passing between them. "Emma!" Thomas gasped. "Safe," Mercy assured him, still in the cellar with hope. Outside, horses approached. Many horses. Too many for Clayton's remaining men. Thomas dragged himself to the window. Through pain-blurred vision, he saw riders approaching from the north. A dozen men at least, rifles ready. "More coming," he warned Mercy. She joined him at the window, rifle reloaded. Not Clayton's men. Thomas recognized the lead rider, Harlan Jenkins. Behind him rode other neighbors from surrounding ranches. They surrounded Clayton and his remaining men, weapons raised. Jenkins dismounted, approaching Clayton with deliberate steps. "This doesn't concern you, Jenkins," Clayton called, hand on his pistol. "Shooting a man on his own property concerns everyone in this valley," Jenkins replied. His rifle remained aimed at Clayton's chest. "I have legal papers authorizing recovery of stolen property." Jenkins spat into the snow. "We don't agree with Blackwood harboring a colored woman, but we disagree with Southern men bringing their troubles to our territory even more." More riders appeared from the tree line, the sheriff among them. Clayton's expression hardened as he recognized his position was untenable. The standoff held for one breath. Two. Then Clayton slowly raised his hands. The sheriff took Clayton and his remaining man into custody. Iron manacles replaced the ropes Clayton had once used on others. Justice carried its own symmetry. Clayton's protests fell on deaf ears as the sheriff led him away. Thomas watched from the porch, supported by Jenkins. Blood soaked the bandage Mercy had hastily applied. His vision blurred at the edges. "Get him inside," Jenkins ordered the other men, "and fetch Mercy. He'll bleed out otherwise." Mercy emerged from the root cellar with Hope strapped to her chest and Emma clinging to her skirts. Her eyes found Thomas immediately, assessing his condition with clinical precision. Thomas lost consciousness as they carried him to his bed. He dreamed of gunfire and falling snow, of blood on white sheets, of Mercy standing between him and death. He woke to morning light filtering through curtains. Mercy sat beside the bed, grinding herbs in a small bowl. Hope slept nearby in a wooden cradle Thomas had built. "How long?" Thomas asked, his voice rough. 2 days. He tried to sit up. Pain lanced through his shoulder, sharp and insistent. Mercy pressed him gently back against the pillows. "The bullet went through clean," she explained. "No infection, but you lost blood." "Clayton?" "Jailed in the territorial prison. The sheriff took statements from everyone. The judge arrives next week." Thomas studied her face, the familiar features that had become necessary to him. Her hands moved with practiced efficiency, preparing medicines that would heal him. "You saved my life," he said. Mercy continued her work, expression unchanged. "You saved mine first." The neighboring families who had come to their aid remained for several days. The women cooked and cleaned while the men repaired damage to the cabin. Jenkins organized a rotation for guard duty until Clayton's trial, though no one expected further trouble. Emma appointed herself Mercy's assistant, carrying bandages and medicines to her father's bedside. She watched with solemn attention as Mercy changed dressings and mixed herbal remedies. "Will Pa get well?" she asked when they were alone. "Yes," Mercy answered without hesitation. "Your father is strong." Emma nodded, accepting this truth. "Like you." Thomas recovered slowly. February gave way to March. Snow melted from the fields, revealing tender green shoots beneath, new life emerging from frozen ground. The territorial judge arrived as promised, setting up court in the town's small church. The community gathered to witness justice. Thomas attended despite his weakened state, Mercy supporting him as they entered. The proceedings began with the sheriff presenting evidence. Clayton's papers declaring ownership of Mercy were examined, then set aside. In this territory, such documents held no legal weight. Thomas testified about the attack on his property. Neighbors confirmed his account. Mercy sat straight-backed in the front row, Hope sleeping in her arms, and Emma pressed against her side. When called to testify, Mercy handed Hope to Emma and walked forward with quiet dignity. The courtroom fell silent. She spoke clearly, her cultured voice surprising those who hadn't known her. She described Clayton's murder of his first wife, the abuse she had endured, her escape north while pregnant, her medical training from her grandmother and Clayton's first wife. The judge listened without interruption, his weathered face revealing nothing. When Mercy finished, he asked only one question. "Can you read and write, Mrs. Williams?" "My name is Mercy," she corrected gently. "And yes, sir, I can read medical journals, mix medicines, keep accounts, and write correspondence." The judge nodded, something like respect crossing his features. He called for a recess before his ruling. Outside the church, Thomas found Mercy standing alone, gazing across the awakening spring landscape. "You were remarkable in there," he said. She shook her head. "Just truthful." When court resumed, the judge delivered his verdict. Clayton was sentenced to prison for attempted murder and violating territorial laws. His claims of ownership were dismissed entirely. The judge called Mercy forward once more. He presented her with official papers declaring her legally free, her daughter likewise. "By the authority of this territorial court," he pronounced. "I declare you a free woman with all rights thereof." The community witnessed her receiving the document, holding it with reverent hands. Thomas watched with pride and something deeper that he couldn't yet name. Spring advanced across the land. The ranch flourished under their combined efforts. Thomas regained his strength, though the wound left a puckered scar across his shoulder. With her freedom secured, Mercy faced new decisions. Thomas found her one evening on the porch, watching the sunset paint the distant mountains gold. "I've been thinking," he began awkwardly. "For protection, for Emma and Hope both, perhaps we should consider a marriage of convenience." Mercy studied him, her expression unreadable. "Is that what you want? Convenience?" Thomas faltered. "I just meant, legally, it would protect you both if anything happened to me." "I need to know what freedom feels like first," she said gently, "to choose my own path." Thomas nodded, accepting this truth despite the weight in his chest. "Whatever you decide, this is your home as long as you want it." Word spread through the territory about Mercy's medical knowledge. People began arriving at the ranch, seeking help for ailments the nearest doctor was too distant to treat. Mercy never turned anyone away. Thomas converted an old storage cabin into a proper doctor's office for her. Shelves for medicines, a clean table for examinations, a stove for warmth in winter. Emma watched the transformation with confusion. "If Mercy isn't going to be my mother, why is she staying?" Thomas knelt before his daughter. "Family isn't always what we expect, Emma. Sometimes it's what we build together, day by day." The girl considered this, then nodded with simple acceptance. "Like our garden. We plant the seeds and tend them, and they grow." Summer passed into autumn. Mercy's reputation as a healer spread further. Thomas expanded the ranch operations, hiring 2 local boys to help with the cattle. Emma and Hope grew closer, the older girl appointing herself protector and teacher to the toddler. Hope took her first steps in the garden Mercy had planted, tiny hands reaching toward the medicinal plants her mother tended. Thomas watched them from the corral, something expanding in his chest. This improvised family, born from necessity and chance, had become more precious than anything he'd known. Winter settled over the land once more. Snow blanketed the fields and forest. Inside the cabin, warmth and life defied the season's chill. Emma read stories to Hope by the fire. Mercy prepared medicines for the coming spring planting. Thomas split wood in the yard, each stroke of the axe rhythmic and sure. His body had healed completely, stronger now than before, like broken bone that mends more solid at the fracture. A full year passed since the standoff with Clayton. The anniversary arrived with quiet acknowledgement. They had survived, thrived even, against all odds. Thomas visited his wife's grave less frequently now. The guilt had faded, replaced by understanding. Life continued for those left behind. She would have wanted that for him, for Emma. Mercy had established herself firmly in the community. Grudging respect had replaced suspicion in the eyes of neighbors. Her cabin office saw a steady stream of patients from surrounding ranches. Thomas had courted her properly through the seasons. Small gestures of respect, fresh herbs gathered from the hills, a new journal bound in leather, space to grow into her freedom. Their relationship evolved through shared trials and quiet moments. Mutual respect formed its foundation, growing affection its walls, hope its roof. Early spring brought new life to the land once more. Green shoots pushed through melting snow. Birdsong returned to the awakening forest. Thomas and Emma visited Mercy's cabin as they did each week, bringing supplies from town. Emma immediately took Hope outside to see new lambs in the paddock. Thomas unloaded supplies while Mercy recorded patient notes in her journal. Her handwriting flowed across the page, elegant and precise. "The Wilson baby is thriving now," she commented. "The tea worked for his colic." Thomas nodded, arranging jars on her shelves. Comfortable silence settled between them, the kind that needs no words to fill it. As he prepared to leave, Mercy called him back. "Thomas." She handed him papers, her application for a medical license. standard forms provided by the territorial government, properly completed in her meticulous handwriting. Thomas scanned the document, stopping at the name listed, Mercy Blackwood. He looked at her questioningly, heart suddenly loud in his chest. Mercy simply said, "Ask me again." Through the window, Emma watched her father kneel in the dirt before the woman who had once been property. His hands trembled as he took hers. Mercy's answer was lost to distance, but Emma saw it in the way her father's shoulders straightened, in how Mercy leaned forward to press her forehead against his. Emma took Hope's small hand in hers. "Come on," she whispered. "Let's go welcome our mother home." And that is all to the story, for now. Please let me know where you are tuning in from. Perhaps we will create a story there. Consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel. It helps motivate me write each story. See you tomorrow.